Hello everyone and welcome to Call Sign Charlie Models. Andre here, and we have another massive inbox review today. Again, this one really doesn't fit into the camera shot right here, but I think I got it good enough to fit. So again, huge, absolutely massive box from Trumpeter, and we know this one's going to be absolutely jam-packed with plastic and everything. So going on the top of the box art, we have some nice art on the top. And then on the sides, we have three or two different schemes to go off of right here. We have first the second pre-series aircraft of Bourget of 2001, and we have another one, a flight test training center of Kangzhou Air Base right there. Then we flip it over to the other side, and we have some nice pictures of the built model right in here. So again, very nice on that. We're going to get everything opened up and get everything set up, and then we'll start going through the instructions, decals, and then all the plastic. So I'll be back in 1 second. Alright, so we're starting off with the instructions, typical Trumpeter format with the instructions right here with the nice booklet form, our legends, and our read before assembly on the front page. And then we open it up, and again we have our sprue callouts right here listing all the sprues, and there are a lot of sprues to go onto this, and a few other parts going on with our clear parts, our intakes, our exhaust right here. We got some rubber tires, nose cone, air brake, and exhaust cones right there. And we also have a couple other parts like a spring, a couple screws, and a shaft, a couple shafts, and then a couple photo etch frets, and then a few decal sheets to go in along with the kit. So starting off with the kit, we are starting with our cockpit, getting our cockpit all done, and then we have the cannon to go on, and then we're working on our rear main landing gear wells. Then after that, we are adding in a strut for our air brake or speed brake. Then adding in a couple pieces right in here. It looks like this is our nose landing gear well. Then we're getting all of that added into the upper fuselage along with the inside of our refueling receptacle right there. After that's all done, we have a few more parts to add into our nose landing gear bay. And then moving on, we're starting off with our wings, getting our flaps in. These will be positionable with the flaps because they do have the shafts and all that. For me, I'm not a fan of those. I won't be making it movable. But do that for both wings, and then we're getting the wings attached to the upper fuselage or lower fuselage along with our nose gear well as well. After that's done, we are getting our upper and lower fuselages together using screws to help with the strength of that. Then we are adding in our instrument combings and our instrument panels right there along with our slats as well. Then after that's done, we're working on our intakes, getting our intakes all done. Looks like these are going to be fairly decent, one piece, no issues with that. And then if there are any seam lines, you can put down these FOD preventers, and that will make up for any issues that are going on further down in the intakes. After that, we're working on our ejection seats, getting our ejection seats down, and then we're adding in our intakes and a couple of fins to go on the back end of the aircraft. Then after that, we have a couple of lumps and bumps to add to the fuselage, and then we are working on our landing gear struts, getting all that done. Does look like the landing gear is workable because there is a spring that goes in there, so you will be able to have some play on the landing gear, so actually look like it's weighted or something like that. Alright, so moving on, then we have some antenna to add and navigation lights onto the upper fuselage, and then adding in our landing gear struts right in here, and then landing gear doors, and starting with the pylons on the fuselage as well. After that's done, we're working on our horizontal stabilizers, and then we're working on our engines right here. and then we have our vertical stabilizers right here, and then we're working on our canopy and the remainder of our speed brake right here. After that's all done, we're getting the engines put into the fuselage along with the tip for our nose, the thing that comes, I can't think of the word right now, but the stinger basically that comes out of the tail right there. After that's done, we have a few other antenna to attach to it, and then we're attaching our speed brake and then our gun panel right here, and then a couple other panels and pitot tubes right there, and then also our HUD is being attached as well. After that's all done, we're adding in our front canopy section, another pitot tube right in there, and then our ejection seats are going in, and then we have our canopy going in as well. After all that's done, we have all of our weapons to put together right in there, going all the way through. And then lastly, we have our loadout options right there. So very nice on how you can have accurate loadouts just as long as you follow this. Up next, we have our color callouts. Just using basic colors right here. They no manufacturer for the colors, but again, some nice pre-operational paint schemes right here. Going through, as you can see, we have decals for the instrument panels and also for the cockpit as well. But just moving right along, and then on the opposite side, we have the same thing, another test version as well. So for me, I think I might see if I can find some decals for an operational one to use instead of the test ones, but these do look fairly nice. Up next, we have our color callouts for all of our ordnance going on. A lot of ordnance included in this kit, like typical Trumpeter kits. Then also we have our decal placements for our pylons as well. Alright, moving right along, we have all of our decals for our loadout or our ordnance right here, and the decals do look very nice. I can't read Russian, so I can't tell you if these are correct, the spelling is correct or anything like that. So, but they all do look fairly nice on the decals. If you speak Russian and you see anything wrong with these decals, please put it down in the comments, because we do know that Trumpeter does make mistakes on their decals, especially with spelling. So if you see anything wrong here, please point it out so we can get it corrected when we build this model. Okay, up next we have more decal sheets. It looks like these are for our pylons and a few of the other fuselage stencils along here. So again, very nice decals, nice and thin, and a nice gloss cover over it. The carrier film doesn't seem okay, so these are all one decal, so you will have some carrier film to battle on that. And again, on these box decals, I'm trying to see if it's just, yeah, this got to be okay. So they eliminated the carrier film in between it here, so again, that's nice. You're just gonna have to battle getting that box all squared out, or you can cut it and connect the lines separately. Again, nice decals on that. Okay, up next we have our main decals right here, and they all also do look very nice, nice and thin. They do feel a little bit raised when I'm rubbing my finger over it, but that shouldn't be too bad. Hit it with some Solvacet and it should go right down. The decals for the cockpit, they do seem a little bit basic, so I will definitely be looking into getting some like Quinta Studios or Red Fox 3D printed decals for the cockpit right there. Alright, so standard of Trumpeter, especially for these larger kits, we have a box inside a box, and actually we have 4 boxes inside the box. But this one, the nose cone right here, again, some nice panel line and rivet detail right here. We do have a mold seam going down the edges here that should be fairly easy to take care of, and we do have some scuffs going along in the plastic, but again, just a quick light sand and that should take care of that rather easily. Okay, up next we have our intakes. Intakes do look very nice. You can see here all the nice rivet detail on the kit right there as the light hits it. That's absolutely gorgeous rivet detail all the way through there. And then on the other side you do have some vents right there and some cabling for inside the landing gear well. Now on the inside, there's a couple ejector pin marks farther down on the inside, but those shouldn't be an issue because you're going to have the FOD and the intakes right in there. You do have the part number listed right there, so you're definitely going to want to take care of that and sand that down. And then another ejection pin mark right there. I do know there are aftermarket intakes out there from a company called Zacto Models. I don't know how active he is anymore because I know he was going through some stuff and he did kind of slow down for a little while, but I know I do have his intakes for this aircraft as well. But the detail on this is actually very, very nice. You do have a mold seam right down here too to take care of. That's kind of makes me a little bit nervous about losing any of the rivet detail going along that seam right there, and you do have it on the other side as well. I'm hoping you can see that. Definitely see it on this side. As you can see, these parts are fairly well packed right here in the inside boxes. So we'll start going off with the clear parts. Main canopy right here, and plastic is actually very, very clear. You do have the seam line to take care of that runs down the middle. I haven't seen many manufacturers that can take care of that or mold this stuff without having that seam line. There are a very select few, but the majority of them, but I mean it is fairly easy. You just mask off right along that line and then sand it off, and then you can repolish it back up. But again, other than that, plastic does look very clear. Okay, moving through our next sprue of clear parts, we do have a couple pieces that broke off on here. Looks like sensor heads for some of our missiles, but again, they do look very clear, very nice on that. So up next we have our speed brake. No detail. We do have a little bit of a sink mark right here. I can see the ejection pin mark through that, and then we flip it over to the other side and there's the ejection pin marks right there. Definitely going to want to take care of those. Those are rather large ejector pin marks. You got what, 6 ejector pins on this part right here. Alright, then moving on to our front canopy piece. Alright, so we do have 2 seam lines running right down the sides of this, which is kind of odd, but this is a very complex shape for this molding with this front sensor right up here. So if you can see the 2 lines going down right there, definitely gonna, and we do have a little bit of flash on the edge right here to take care of. But other than that, the parts do look nice and clear. Definitely gonna want to do a polish to these just to kind of like clean it up a little bit more, but they should be alright, especially after you take care of these 2 seams right here. And they are very light seams, so they shouldn't be too bad to take care of. Up next we have the insides of our exhaust, or the small exhaust right here. Again, nice detail. We do have some flash on the edges of them, but they should clean up fairly nice. And then on the inside, the detail on it is okay. I think I'd rather go with the resin exhaust for this, but they do look okay for injection molding. And then after that we have our 2 photo etch frets, one for our seat belts right here, and then on the other side we have our hinges for our flaps going on through here, and then some rear view mirrors, it looks like, just going on, and then some bases for our antenna right there. Then after that we have our metal landing gear right here. Nice beefy landing gear. I do see a couple ejector pin marks on the metal landing gear, so you're definitely going to want to file those out. And then our rubber wheels. Again, decent tread on the top of it, but no detail along on the sidewalls right there for front and rear tires. And then we have all of our shafts and our springs and screws in this bag right here. Alright, so up next we have the inside of our exhaust right here. We do have an ejector pin mark that I can see right at the top of the can right there. There's a decent detail of the wave to the exhaust, but again, I think resin is just the way to go on this. It might look okay, but again, if you want to go super detailed, definitely go with the resin route on this. Okay, now we have the other option for our exhaust cans, and the detail on them from the outside, it looks okay, looks pretty good moving through. And then on the inside, there's not much detail to it. I'm not sure. Do these? I think these slide in like that, right? So when you do it like that, that looks pretty good. As long as you get it to fit right. But again, that looks pretty decent. But that being said, for injection molding, this looks good. But we do know that there are resin versions of us out there that are night and day better than that. Alright, so up first we have our wing sprue, and we get 2 of these. Alright, detail on the wings, very nice on the panel line and rivet detail, nice and crisp all the way through on the top and bottom, including our flaps right there. And again, on our pylons, we also do have some very nice panel line and rivet detail on those as well. So again, very nice detail on the wings starting out. So then your flap or slats right there. Alright, so up next we're starting our Ordnance sprues, and we know with Trumpeter we're going to have a ton of these. We get 2 of these sprues right here. Some nice detail on the Ordnance going on. I'm not a Russian Ordnance expert, so I can't really say anything about the detail about these. All I can say is that they do look very nice. Okay, so now we have another double sprue of more, looks like our air-to-air missiles right here. Again, nice detail. I do know that the resin ones do have these fins hollowed out and see-through, so that's one bonus touch to resin compared to injection molding. But again, the detail on here does look fairly nice. Okay, so up next we have another double sprue, and this is of our pylons. Again, very nice on the panel lines and rivets all along on these pylons right here. So very nice. I'm thinking that this is set up for another section, probably. Doubt it though, we'll have to see. Like I said, I'm not a Russian ordnance expert, or I'm not very even knowledgeable on it. I know a little bit about them, but not a whole bunch about it. Alright, another double sprue of Ordnance. Again, detail looks pretty nice. For where the panel lines are, they do look nice and crisp as well. Alright, so this looks to be the last of our Ordnance sprues, and we get another 2 of these right here. And again, the detail on here does look fairly nice. We do have some scuff marks from the 2 sprues rubbing up against each other, but they do seem pretty nice. And then we have some more pylons right here going on. So Again, you can see all the detail on there. Alright, moving on, we have our first non-ordnance sprues right here. And again, working with the landing gear right here, we're going to have metal cores that are going to help with the weight of this kit. And then the mud flap for our nose gear does look very nice with the cutout holes for that. And then the intake doors, again, nice panel lines through that. Our exhausts, yeah, those look, you're not going to be able to see much of it, but still the detail is not there. And then on our nose landing gear, well, we do have our sidewalls right here with a little bit of detail going along there. Again, you're not really going to be able to see much of it, but you're going to be able to see it. Then we have another door right here, got a little something. Okay, that's supposed to be there, but the grilling for your FOD deflectors for your intakes, again, does look very nice, and you get that painted up and weathered. There's even a little bit of a waffle honeycombing in there, so it's really going to show up really nice when you have a wash. The inside of your landing gear well, not much detail to that as well. Flip it over to the other side for parts that we're going to be able to see, like these landing gear doors right here. No ejector pin marks in those. And then on the top of your landing gear well, again, no ejector pin marks on that. So everything's looking pretty nice. For your landing gear struts right here, we do have a couple ejector pin marks on those, but they are fairly shallow and should be easily taken care of on that. So yeah, everything else is looking nice. On the landing gear doors, there are no ejector pin marks on the inside of the doors. Okay, and then up next we have a sprue that looks almost identical but isn't identical. It does have a lot of the same pieces, like parts for the exhaust and your landing gear doors, but this one also has one of the ejection seats right here, just moving along, and a couple more gear doors. This one does have your instrument combing right here. Again, that does look very nice. Not sure if there's going to be a clear part that goes in there, or if you paint and then put a little bit of liquid UV resin in there to really make that show up. But again, everything else on here does look very nice. Flip it over to the other side. The only parts I'm really worried about are the landing gear doors, and again, no ejector pin marks on that. Your ejection seats, the outside detail on them, yeah, they look basic, like extremely limited on the detail on it, but from down here you're not going to be able to see anything because it's going to be on the side of the cockpit, so no worries with that. But everything else on here is looking nice. We even have some cabling to go into probably landing gear well right there. Alright, up next we have more ejection seat detail right in here. We have our seat cushions. The seat cushions actually do look pretty nice, especially for our injection molding. So that's not too bad. The seat bases are basic, but then around the edge of the seats, those do have a little bit of detail to them than everything else. The sidewalls, again, a little bit generic on the detail on the switches and all that, so I'm definitely going to be looking into some Quinta Studios detail sets for all that. And then moving right along, we have again the cockpit tub, but I think you have, yeah, you do have some panels that go on top of that, and again, generic on the detail on that, so I'm definitely going to be going in and trying to get some aftermarket stuff for that. Now for your gun panel right here, it's nice and hollowed out on all the vents, so that's really going to look nice when you get that painted up. And then we flip it over to the other side. Not sure on how much of this stuff you're going to be able to see, if any of it. So your pitot tubes do look nice and sharp and pointed, so that's nice. And that's everything for that sprue. Alright, so moving on, we have our vertical stabilizers, Our rudders are another instrument combing, and our instrument panels right here. The panel line and rivet detail on the vertical stabilizers does look very nice, and also with the detail on the instrument panels, those do look okay as well. Hopefully I can get it to focus in right there. Yep. So those do look pretty nice, and you have some decals that's going to go over there. Now that will help liven it up a little bit, but everything else on here, just the panel line and rivet detail. Now I will say the rivet detail and everything looks a lot better on the intakes than what it does here. There is a little bit of a raise, like a rough edge to the rivets over on this one right here, and the same on this one. So definitely going to want to take it with a high grit sandpaper just to kind of smoothen it out on that. Then after that we have our horizontal stabilizers, and the panel line and rivet detail on here actually looks better than the vertical stabilizers. Just it looks a little bit crisper. I'm not feeling any raised edges over any of the panel lines or rivets like I was feeling on the vertical stabilizers on that, and that's for top and bottom of the horizontal stabilizers. Then we have these fins right here that go on the bottom of the fuselage. Those do look alright. They do have some nice panel line and rivet detail on that as well. Then we flip it over for our intake fans. Intake fans, they just have the grating that goes on there. There's no blade detail on the actual fans. It's just a flat piece of plastic. But with that being said, with the intake doors and everything, that's going to be, if in the up or down position, it's really going to be difficult to see those anyways. So again, for all the small parts, and then on this piece, I'm not sure what this piece is for, but we do have a lot of ejector pin marks on in that piece. I'm assuming this is maybe for the gear door or the gun or something along that line, but there are a lot of ejector pin marks on that. And then again, for this grilling right here for our gun, that does look very nice. Not sure on how much of the gun you're going to be able to see anyways. And it does look like it is hollowed out at the tip as well. Alright, so moving on to the bottom fuselage here, and we do have some nice panel line and rivet detail. It's not like overboard on the panel line and rivets going through, and we have a little bit of detail for our main landing gear wells back here as well. Again, it's just the bottom looks okay. We do have some flash and some connection points to sand down here. On the inside, not really worried about any of that. It does feel like it's fairly strong plastic on that. And then also on the bottom, you're really not, especially when you have the intakes on and then all the ordnance on here, you're really not going to be able to see a lot of it. But again, there is some decent panel line and rivet detail on this kit. Do have a seam line that goes right down the middle right here, but I'm only seeing it now. It's only right here on the front edge of it. It doesn't go down the rest of the fuselage. And then we have the stinger right here. Again, decent detail. I do know that there is an aftermarket stinger out there to replace this. Alright, so moving on to our upper fuselage, and this thing is massive. I mean, it is absolutely massive. So on the top of the box, it says that this kit has a length of 697.8 millimeters and a wingspan of 461.3 millimeters. So this is going to be absolutely massive for a fighter aircraft moving on. And which, by the way, I haven't gotten to say that the Flanker is probably one of my favorite Russian aircraft out of everything. Just the way it just looks sleek. It looks fast, and it looks actually beautiful compared to some of the other Russian aircraft, which the other aircraft look like they're just ready to be beat up and already beat up. But the flankers, they just look gorgeous in my opinion. So moving back into the kit with the detail on here, with the fuselage we do have a nice little texture to the plastic here. There is again some very nice panel line and rivet detail going all the way through here, and you're going to have pieces that go on here. It seems like that's a little bit odd because it seems like it's two different types of plastic. I'm hoping that will show up, but on this line right here, it changes plastic. It goes from a matte type of finish to a gloss finish up here, which is kind of odd, honestly speaking. But just all the other detail. We do have another glossy area right here. That's kind of weird. I hadn't seen that before, where it just pops up in different areas where it looks like it's different plastic. We do have a couple ejector pin nubs that we're going to need to sand down right here and here on the other side. But again, and the same thing with the nose looking like it's a different type of plastic on this side as well. I'm hoping you can see that. You can see the line right there where it's just two different types of plastic, it looks like. Because you have this, which is a nice matte coat, kind of has a little bit of a texture to it, and then you have this one, which is silky smooth but also glossy on that. So, and then on the inside, no detail, but you're going to have sidewalls and everything that stick into that, so no issues with any of that. But again, some really nice detail. Here's your chaff and flare deflectors right in here. You can see that. But again, really nice detail on the fuselage from what I can see so far. And the way that it's going to mate up with the bottom should eliminate any issues with seam lines at all. Alright, so that will do it for the Trumpeter 132nd Su-30MKK Flanker-G. The kit, I mean, it looks good, but it looks like it's hit and miss in certain areas. Like some areas are an absolute hit, like the upper fuselage, minus the part where it looks like it's two different plastics up at the nose. The rest of the detail and the texture of the plastic, absolutely a hit. The wing detail, the horizontal stabilizer detail, all looks absolutely amazing. The vertical stabilizer detail, it looks a little rough. Like I said, when I was running my fingers across it, I could feel raised edges on the rivets. So it's like they went through with the riveter and didn't clean up after that. So just doing a quick light sand over it should take care of it. The exhaust, those look pretty good for injection molding. Again, I think I'm going to go with the resin exhaust because I know those will be a lot better, and I know that is a key focal point of the flanker, is the whole exhaust area, because it's got that metallic look to it. And then the cockpit. Cockpit does look rather generic with their switch detail. I do know this is when they did this, it was a test version, so probably not a lot of pictures or ability to see what the cockpit actually looked like. So I understand why some of it is generic. But then again, the flankers have been out for a while, so you could just get the basic flanker switch detail and get that right. But again, I think I'm going to go with the some aftermarket interior stuff with that. And the intakes, they do look pretty good. The rivet detail on the intakes do look rather nice. And then you're going to have the FOD doors and everything in the closed position, or at least I am, and that's going to help block off some of the lack of detail with the exhaust and the intakes on that. Ordnance, Trumpeter has given me so much ordnance from all the kits I have. I think I have more ordnance than the Russian Air Force does right now. So yeah, they just give like so much ordnance, and even then it's like you don't use half of it. So that's where I'm standing with this kit. I really do like this kit. I'm looking forward to building it. Just a few little aftermarket upgrades for me, just to kind of like spice it up a little bit. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this inbox review of this kit. I hope if you were on the fence about getting this kit, I hope it helped you in whichever way that you were looking at going. And then other than that, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below, especially if you've built this kit before. And hit the bell button for notifications of my future videos. And until next time, have a great day, stay frosty, and happy modeling.